Hey everybody, back at you again. Just wanted to kind of follow up some of my other videos. There's a bass fishing series and there's a catfish bait video, and I wanted to show you the rigging that you use. If you want to catch bass, you want to catch catfish, you don't want to be changing up the gear all the time, here's what you do. This is one of the best techniques for both species, and I'm going to teach you right here. Let's start with just the basic setup. You need like a 17-pound main line or maybe a 20-pound main line. You can do this with spin casting reels, like I've got set up for my son, Easton here. This is a Zebco 33, and you can put, I've got 17-pound line on it. They make some of these that are pretty darn tough these days at a very affordable price. And so you can run relatively heavy monofilament line on a spin cast reel. Starting with your main line. And I should have a high-vis line. I've tried to set the lighting up here to where you can actually see what I'm doing, and I've got a high-vis leader. So you want your main line to be just a little heavier than your leader, so that if you break off, you at least get your weight back. Okay, start with your main line and a sinker. This is a big 1-ounce copper, so you can see it. But a 3/4 ounce or a 1 ounce weight is all you'll ever need for this. It goes to the bottom pretty darn quick, even in like 40 feet of water. A barrel swivel or a barrel weight works fine. You know, an egg weight, or this is a bullet sinker. This was actually made for Carolina rigging. You can use a regular slip sinker like you would use for a heavy Texas rig. About a 3/4 ounce slip sinker is fine too. Thread that on. Point going toward the rod, up the line, if you've got a pointed sinker. Put a bead on. Put a bead, 2 beads, 3 beads. Just put some beads on there. They clack in the water and they kind of attract fish by making sound, and it protects your knot. The reason you want to protect the knot is because a lot of times if you break one of these off, it's going to break off on the hook set. If the weight has damaged the knot, then sometimes it'll break right there at the knot and you get nothing back but a piece of line and not a fish. So set that aside, like so. Now I need a swivel and a leader line. I've got this high-vis, this is a high-vis 20. It doesn't need to be a 20-pound leader. I wouldn't go with something like 6 or 8. 12 to 15 is probably just about right, especially for around here, the Texas ponds. Tie the leader to the swivel. Does not have to be an expensive swivel. If you're out there fishing tournaments, fishing for money, yeah, get yourself Molly-coated ball bearing swivels. But if you're fishing for catfish, you don't need that. Remember, with catfish, you're gonna throw it out there and let it sit. The longer it sits there, the fish can smell it and come to it. You put the bait out there and the fish come to you. Carolina rigging is different. You're actually gonna fish it along. Catfishing, you throw it out there, let it sit, put on Swivel or other music from, heavy metal from the 90s that you still think is cool, and play air guitar and pretend to be James Hetfield from Metallica. I'm sure everyone else does that other than me. Anyway, you tie the leader to the swivel. There's an order. You must go in this order. Then you tie the leader and swivel to the main line. The last thing you do is tie on the hook to the end of the leader. What I've got, you start off with about 2.5, 3 foot, and as you tie knots, it's gonna get a little shorter, so you're gonna end up with about a 2-foot leader, which is fine. If you're fishing for catfish, what you tie on the end is a catfish hook. This is a 3/0 Mustad catfish hook. This will work just fine. Circle hooks work just fine. If you're doing live minnows, go with a Kale hook. 2 or 3/0 is just fine. If you're Carolina rigging for bass, then you're going to use a lizard or a little worm and a Texas rig hook, an offset worm hook. This is a huge 5/0 and a big worm, so you can see it on the camera. And listen carefully to this one. I have caught 8, 10s. I've caught huge bass. Matter of fact, the biggest bass I have ever caught were on Carolina rigs with a 2/0 hook and a 4-inch zoom centipede or a 5-inch zoom trick worm. 2/0 hook, 2/0 light wire hook, and a zoom centipede or a zoom trick worm, the small ones. That will pretty much always put something in the boat. And that doesn't matter if you're in 40 feet of water on Lake Fork in June or if you're out here on a neighborhood pond in November. you'll still catch them. I've caught several on Carolina rigs just this week as it's gotten colder. So if you're doing a catfish rig, you put your salted and garlicked bit of wiener on there, throw it out there, prop the rod up at an angle so that when the fish bites that there's spring in it, and then you play air guitar and pretend to be James Hetfield. If you're Carolina rigging, throw it out there, let it go all the way to the bottom. The weight will be on the bottom, and this light little worm will sort of be slowly meandering down. You just pick the weight up and pull it a couple feet, and slowly work it back to you, and you'll feel the doo-doo-doo, and you'll feel them run off with it. If you're catfishing and the rod is propped up, you're watching the end of the rod, like that. It will be unmistakable when you've got a catfish on the line. If there's little fish messing with it, you might seize that, or the wind will blow and kind of pull it a little bit. When there's catfish on there, you're gonna know. It's not gonna be any question about it. So there's Carolina rigging and catfishing. All starts with the same basic rig, and what you'll end up with is, this, a swivel, a leader, and then on the end, the final thing you do is you choose the hook for the type of species and type of fishing you're doing. Hope that helps. Get out there and catch some fish.